to Deadline Live with Jack Blood. Thanks for joining us today. I'm involving you in this book I've got my nose in here. Dr. Mary's Monkey by Edward Haslam. Ed joins us on the show today. This book is available at the great TrineDay, TrineDay.com, or 800-556-2012, 800-556-2012. You can also, of course, get that at Brave New Bookstore, one of our great sponsors, bravenewbookstore.com. Ed, I got to tell you, I've read a lot of books about, I've almost read every book about the JFK assassination. I've never heard anything about any of this. In fact, I didn't even know the other book that you had written previously, Mary Ferry and the Monkey Virus. So this is all coming as quite a shock to me, but it also really, I think, in many ways confirms some of the things we know about eugenics programs and I've done quite a few stories on AIDS being a manufactured bioweapon. We've read and researched race-specific bioweapons. I mean, the technology and biotechnology is going through the stratosphere, and Dr. Mary Sherman might have been one of the first high-profile biochemists or biological doctors to have been murdered, but certainly not the last. We have seen, and I'm sure you have noticed this too, a rash of very high-placed biotech guys just being eliminated. It's cause for concern, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, all this stuff is cause for concern. I mean, this particular story is like the skeleton in the National Closet. I mean, I don't know of a worse story than this one.
When you're talking about Judith Very Baker, I'm just going to try to move fast here, Ed, because we're short on time. And then we get to Anna Lewis, who puts Judith and Lee together out drinking on Bourbon Street, meeting with Carlos Marcello, the famous mafia boss. The other witness, Anna Lewis, lying to Jim Garrison when she said she didn't know Lee Harvey. Judith Very Baker, right in the middle of all of this. And then we get to Mary Sherman. And we keep coming back to this question, and I just like your hypothesis at this point. What was she doing working with this weirdo, David Ferry, who by the way, was hairless? Apparently he had got some radiation poisoning or something. Maybe that's a good explanation. Lost all his hair, which is why he drew those crazy eyebrows on himself. What was she doing? I mean, just give us your hypothesis, Ed, here, without having, read all the book.
They were making a biological weapon to kill Fidel Castro.
Just Castro, or does it go beyond that?
That was the story that was told to Judith Very Baker. Now, they did not tell her we're trying to make a biological weapon to eliminate the underclass of the planet, because she would not have participated in that. But there was this, big anti-commie fever at the time, and she was kind of loyal and patriotic, and they tapped into that, and they got her to stand there, go to Ferry's apartment several days a week with Lee Oswald at her side, and under the supervision of Mary Sherman and Dr. Alton Oshner, and create a bioweapon for the stated purpose of killing Fidel Castro. The point I want to make about Judith, which I was making before the break, is that once the people who were in charge of the American Cancer Society and discovered that they had a high school kid that was outperforming the entire National Cancer Institute in terms of this cancer research, they fast-tracked her. Okay, they brought her up to Roswell, New York. They trained her in all these advanced techniques for handling cancer-causing monkey viruses, and then they brought her to New Orleans. She went to University of Florida for a couple of years where she was doing secret research with human cancer cells and radiation. Then they brought her over to New Orleans on the promise that if she spent the summer doing their bidding working with Mary Sherman and stuff, that they would let her into a medical school without ever finishing her undergraduate school, and she'd be able to skip 2 years of school. And, she was fast-tracked. And the whole point of this thing was they needed her there because the project was getting really dangerous at that point, and they needed somebody that was properly trained. And she was 19 years old, hardly ever been out of Florida, and gets lost going around the corner. So they gave her a babysitter, a bodyguard, somebody to keep track of her and find her a house and make sure she gets where she's going. And they set up cover jobs for him and everything else. And this bodyguard that they assigned to her was an ex-Marine by the name of Lee Harvey Oswald.
The coincidences just stack up, don't they?
Well, there's no coincidences here. I mean, this was a covert operation to create a biological weapon. They didn't want to tell
you made a really good point, too. I mean, if they told these people that, that this is a wider program than just going after Castro, which allegedly he's still alive. I did an interesting interview, Ed, years ago with a Rockefeller insider from the American Enterprise Institute who accidentally admitted that they control Castro. I think he's dead now, personally, but neither here nor there. The point is that they wouldn't do this if they thought it was some wider eugenics program or a control program or even a program to line the pockets of the pharmaceutical industries. They would not do that. They thought they were doing their patriotic duty. Let's talk about Mary Sherman and her murder. The cover-up involved in that. I mean, this is my usual premise, and it goes with 9/11, the JFK assassination, everything, Ed. If everything's above board and everything is, being investigated and honest and whatnot, why all these cover-ups? Why did they try to show that Mary had been, Dr. Mary Sherman, had been killed by some forced intruder when all the evidence shows that she knew her assailant?
Well, it's actually deeper than that. The first thing I want to do here is prove that there was a cover-up, okay? Because that's a word that gets thrown around, and there's a suspicion that people that are using it are just paranoid by nature, and it's not really based on facts. And in this particular case, the public was told that an intruder had come into her apartment, slashed her with a knife, and set the body on fire. And the rumor mill was alive with rumors of weird sex and all this other stuff, because that's where people's heads tend to go. And I was told off channel by my parents way back in the 60s that her arm had been cut off. Okay? And 30 years later, or 28 years later, I went back and I was able to get a copy of the police report, of the autopsy report, and all of...
We should say that wasn't easy, Ed. There was a lot of resistance.
Well, let me just say I got them, and all of the newspaper articles. And it was then that I realized that I had two sets of documents, the insider documents and the public documents, which were completely different. Okay, the public was never told what really happened to Mary Sherman.